Chris Moses here, and this is Gospel Progressions University. Have you ever wondered about those cool little passing chords that musicians use in order to get from one place to another? So before I found out what they were, I thought it was something that was, really fancy. I didn't realize how simple these chords were, all right? So I learned them and I said, okay, well, let me see what I can hear. And I started to pick up some patterns. But one thing I know about playing keys is that we can take simple concepts, ABCs, 1, 2, 3. We can put them together and then we get A1, B2, C3, almost like algebra. But it's a lot simpler than that. You know major chords. So that's mostly what they are. So I'm going to talk a lot about tritones and quartils. I have the link here. I'm not going to go into everything that I've gotten to in those videos. You want to learn more, just check those videos out. But for the intent and purpose here, we're going to take what we already know, something simple. And if you know about tritones and quartils, that's good. So we can move right along with it. So typically in gospel, whenever we're moving forward, we like to use the 5 chord, or we move up in fourths. And simply what that means is this. Let's take an example of something in the key of E flat major, right? So we have E flat major, and the 5 chord would be our B flat. E flat is 1, F is 2, G is 3, A flat is 4, and B flat is 5. So typically what we would do in gospel is take a 5 chord and make it dominant. So we established that the B flat is the 5 chord. So we know it's dominant because we have our A flat here, which makes it a dominant, and our 3rd, which gives the characteristics of the chord, whether it's major or minor. In this case, it's going to be a major chord with the A flat makes it dominant, and then we resolve to our 1 chord, which is E flat. So we can actually take the B flat out, because when we have the tritone here, which is D and A flat, we can imply B flat in the bass. When we have chords that are not triads like this, we have something called a dyad that implies a chord. This could imply a few chords, but in this case, our ear is going to go, it's going to want to resolve to that from the A flat here down to the E flat. So we can actually take that and we can build on it. We know what our tritone is, D and A flat. If we invert it, it's still going to be A flat and D. Okay, and we have our, let's say, a quartil. All right, just a quick review. Quartil is just going up in fourths. It's a triad that goes up in fourths. So C, a 4th up from C is F, 4th up from F is B flat, right? We won't particularly use this triad necessarily, or this quartil, but what we can do, and what I like to do, is we have this here. So we have our A flat. And from our A flat, we can actually go up a 4th. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, would be D flat. And from D flat, 1, 2, 3, 4, we have our G flat. Okay? So we can stick with something like this, or we can even go further and go, all right, we can go to B if we want to. But for this purpose here, because I'm in E flat, I don't want to go too crazy outside of it. I won't say crazy. There's a lot of things you can do with color, but understand that we have our tritone and we have our quartil. We put the 2 together. Now we have sort of a marriage, okay, with what we're trying to do. And it makes a simple idea of a tritone, which is just a dyad, it's 2 notes, and a quartil, if you know how to count, 1 to 4, very simple. When we put the 2 together, we have a different color, largely because this interval over here is a minor 7. The C sharp, but a D flat is a minor 7 up from D. Okay, it gives us that dissonance, and then we have these other tones here that makes it sound more colorful. So when we have our harmony, we have our dissonance, and we have our dissonance harmony. Okay, so we can move on from that now. And typically, whenever we are moving in tritones, we said that we have it implies something, right? It implies a bass. So we can actually just come up with a very simple chord progression. So it's basically E flat, and then we go to D flat, and then we go to C minor, and then F minor, B flat, and then E flat. Okay, so again, you know me, I'm not going to play the chords that basic with this, but I want you to understand the concept behind it. Everything can be broken down to its most basic and most fundamental element. I don't just want to show you fat chords. I'm like, yeah, you can do this, you can do that, and you have no idea what this is based off of, because I want you to be able to take this and apply it to other things, whatever key you want. So our first chord here, how I'm going to actually voice it, I'll voice it like this, okay? Typically with jazz or gospel, when we have our chord here, we have a major 7 chord, which gives us the D here, and we have this the minor 7 interval here. We have the 6th, all right, and our third. So that builds the chord here. That gives the chord its color. So that already sets you up for something else that you can do. Okay, so now we have this chord here. So our one chord, and then now we can move to a 2-5-1 D, or either one you can do. All right, G chord here, and then we can resolve to C minor. And now what we'll do, the resolution is going to end at a 2, 5, and 1. But again, we won't play the bass line F, B flat, and E flat because we'll act like we have a bass player, or even if we don't. The ear a lot of times makes up for the missing elements of what we're trying to play. Our ears are a lot more smarter than you give it credit for. So now it's our first chord. All right, we have that chord progression there, and now we can actually move on and say, okay, I'm going to want to do the tritone and then go back to the E flat. Okay, so how that would work is we would take this tritone and say, well, we can build on it and say, like we did before, we have our tritone, we can use our quartal. So already you can hear the harmonic resolution here and here, just like we did before with here, right? But there are other things that we can do as well. Now, just by listening and just by messing around, and there's several scales and things like that we can actually use. But I'm not going to get too much into scales in this video. What I want to talk about it's more harmony. So now we have our, said we're in E flat major. We can actually take the third interval, which would be G, right? Our major third from E flat. And typically all the time in any major key, the third is going to be, well, not any major key, the Ionian really, but for this purposes, I'll just say the major key. So the third here is going to be a minor, right? We have our major, minor, and minor. But what if we took the third and we said, okay, well, instead of making it minor, let's go ahead and make it major. So how would it sound? To me, it resolves really nicely. It's different. It's kind of a floaty kind of feel, but it does resolve nicely to the E flat. So again, what if we took those things and we combined them? All right, we created a marriage between them, just like we created this here, and now we can try something like this. But instead of just playing it outright, just the G going to the E flat, what we can do is say, okay, well, we can take the tritone now that we had before, our B flat tritone or B flat, depending on which direction. I will play just my pinky and my index finger on my left hand here. And what I will do is just play this here, G, and then resolve right back to it. Or I can do this, or this. So those are all ways we can actually resolve back using simple concepts. Resolve back to our major chord, or in this case would be E flat for the 1. All right, so again, we have the first chord. All right, we do our chord progression to go to C minor. And now we can approach that. We can approach that tritone or approach that chord via half steps, because we already have the marriage. The ear is already tuned to it, especially when you play this for a couple times. You can actually move now and go either a half step down to approach it or come up from a half step. So for example, we know it's G, all right? And a half step behind that would be what? Well, F sharp, G flat. So G flat, right? And if we were to go to a half step higher from G, we would get our A flat, all right? Now A flat will resolve nicely down to the G flat. So we have this, all right, G flat inverted, because we can do that as well. With major chords, it's almost, you'll hear this in gospel a lot. You can even, after you hear what I'm doing, you can listen to like traditional hymns and things like that, and you'll hear they do a lot of this movement between the half step to get to the major, but you do it up as well, from up and going down. I may have spoken about this in another video. So now we have our movement. Remember this? We have this here. Okay, we can resolve there. We also have this. We can go for that chord. We can approach it via half step. All right. And this is all over one note or several notes because the harmonies overlap. Again, taking simple concepts, just a dyad or a tritone and a simple triad, okay? What we already know. And we just combine the two. Put that all together now, we have our E flat chord, and then we have our D chord to the G chord to a C. And now here comes our movement with our tritone and major chord, and then a chordal and the tritone. So major chord with the tritone, approaching it from a half step below and a half step above, and then now our chordal to resolve. All right, so here's an example of what that would actually sound like in practice. So that's one possible way to use this approach. I hope this makes sense to you. I actually have the PDF, the MIDI file, and the play along track and the sample track available, but that's available to people that actually have the free subscription that comes with this video. If you want dibs on free resources like that, you can actually check out my website at Gospel Progressions University /Gospel Keys Pro. You can download my free guide. It's called What Do Pro Musicians Know That You Don't? And you'll get free weekly lessons just like this right in your inbox. And if you want to learn more about tritones and chordals, just check out these 2 videos here. God bless you. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.